Welcome to the GrowthPro Edge. We're here to help scale your business, build stronger teams, and sharpen your leadership skills. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the GrowthPro Edge. I'm your host, Denise Killian, with the GrowthPro Group. Each week on the GrowthPro Edge, we'll be tackling issues about growth to help you on your journey to grow yourself, your team, and your business. But before we get started, I want to take a moment to thank our sponsors for 2026, Roller, Party Center Software, A&A Global, Betson, Simnox, Schaefer, and Embed. Thanks so much for all you do to help make this show possible. And if you would, please take a moment to subscribe now on Spotify, Apple, or however you watch or listen to your podcasts. And follow the GrowthPro Group on social media so you don't miss a single episode. This week, we'll be talking with Chris Moyer about the spirit of entrepreneurship and what drives him to create not one, but two separate businesses from scratch. Let's get started and hear from Chris. Chris, welcome to the GrowthPro Edge. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you.
Listen, before we get started, I'm so excited to talk to you about your entrepreneurial spirit and how that has propelled you and the decisions that you've made in your life and in your businesses, plural. But before we do that, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I am the owner of Let's Roll Bowling with a couple of other guys. We own 3 entertainment facilities in Kansas and Arkansas. I'm also a real estate entrepreneur. I do smaller single-family homes, smaller multifamily and larger apartment complexes, up to like 100-unit complexes. And then I also have a W-2 job full-time as well.
So, and you have a family, and you have beautiful sons.
Kids, yep.
You got a lot going on. You've got a lot going on. So I want to start with what led you to go from what 99.9% of Americans do, which is I go to work for the man, right? I have a W-2 job. I have this life, to what first kind of sparked inside of you to say, I want to start doing something else?
Yeah, there's 2 moments in my life and 2 people that impacted that. So, the first one was when I ran a bowling center 10 years ago for a guy named John Bland. He was a great entrepreneur in Arkansas. His dad did a lot for the city of Paragould, which one of our centers are in. And he mentored me in a time where I was young in my early 20s, didn't know what the heck I was going to do through life and everything. And he would tell me about real estate stuff that he was doing in Texas all the time, and it really turned into some cool conversations that I really enjoyed. And at the same time, I met my at the time she wasn't my wife, but I met my wife at that time, and we always kind of just talked about, after we get married, and once we have some ability to do that, I'd like to get into the real estate world. And 3 weeks after we got married, we got under contract for our first house, our first rental house. So we kept that promise 5 years later after that. And then the second point in time was after my dad passed. Maybe it was a little bit of a midlife crisis, dad crisis kind of thing, but I really wanted to do more with my life than what I was doing today, or at that time. So I joined a coaching and mentorship program for real estate, and that would be the what I'd call like the second accelerator that really changed my business life.
So I love that this is something that it's not just you and your wife, your partners in your marriage and your life together, but also partnerships in this expansion into being an entrepreneur.
Yep.
Uh, and your wife, full disclosure, I've had the wonderful pleasure of knowing Chris for about 18 months. And I've had the opportunity to meet your wife and spend some time with your wife. Both super smart people. Um, did she always have that entrepreneurial spirit as well?
No, I would say when we both met, we really both didn't have it. We really were I mean, we're working in the same business for the same guy doing similar things. She was helping me run that center at the time, and we were raising our kid and everything, and just slowly kind of transform into this, other way. She was a nurse, didn't really enjoy nursing that much, especially during COVID. COVID was not kind to that industry, and that really accelerated that piece for her as well.
So when we talk about this decision, now you are still, it's important to note, you've got this real estate business that you have that is, you're always acquiring new places, remodeling, doing different things, expanding that portfolio. You also have started a new brand and sort of the FEC industry with Let's Roll. You've got the centers in Kansas, you've got the center in Arkansas. You're working on expanding that. Uh, how and oh, by the way, you still have your W-2.
Mhm.
Why did you choose to keep your W-2 while you're working on these entrepreneurial aspects? And I'm gonna say this is a lot more than just a side hustle, right? These are,
Yeah.
big businesses on their own. Why why still keep that W-2 job?
So it was at the recommendation of my mentor in the real estate world, Rod Cleef, and um, fear paralyzes everybody is what he, really stresses. And fear can come up when you don't have enough money or things get stressful and tight and everything. And the W-2 job, allows me to not be in a position where I need to worry if, just this weekend we had some snowstorms and you don't have to be worried about, well, if it's a bad week or a bad month in business or something goes wrong, early on when you're growing, that it doesn't, that fear doesn't paralyze you to be able to move and grow. So it's not a 10-year, outlook where I plan on being in a W-2 job forever, but it was definitely a short term, like, hey, this is stable income. I could still do it with doing my other items and other entrepreneurial stuff, and allow myself to get to the point where it'll eventually replace my income. Also, just practically from a investment standpoint, it takes a couple years for investments to really kind of return. It takes 2, 3, 4 years to really start growing that. And early on, um, you know, a lot of times you don't make any money the first 12, 24, 36 months in business because you're reinvesting in that business, redeveloping it. In our case at Let's Roll, we're growing it not only at a single location, but multi-location, so that that does involve more cost, into that world. And I don't sit here any day and worry, and fear doesn't paralyze me from making the right decisions in our business.
So I love that because that is something that I can't imagine, and we're gonna have a whole nother conversation about this, of what is your life like every day with all of this stuff that you have going on. But um, the fear prevents people from doing a lot of things. From they may have a wonderful idea for a business, but they're too afraid to start it, or they may know that something needs to be done, but they're fearful of the immediate outcome of that and don't make the decision, even though that's the best long-term decision. That fear is such a roadblock for so many people, keeping you from doing what you need to do. So for you, that W-2 job was a way to take that fear off of the table.
Yes, yeah, that way it's just not a thing. And there'll be a point in time in life where I'm out of that W-2 job and I've moved on, but that is because of the years of investing previously that then replace that and replace that item that was blocking that fear out. And then when that's replaced, you can move on to, bigger and better things.
That's great. That's great. So you brought up another factor that keeps people from listening to that entrepreneurial spirit. And that is the reality that it takes time to get a return on that investment. So if most businesses, as you mentioned, it could be 12 months, it could be 24 months, it could be 36 months before you even break even, much less see a profit. And so what conversations do you have with yourself and your wife about how you handle that time frame?
Yeah, it's not easy, to say yeah, it's definitely not easy. I have a reminder on my phone every day that tells me a couple of things. One of them is optimistic. One of them is, to stay positive. My wife reminds me every once in a while when, I lean towards the cup half empty side, because that does just naturally happen as a human being. It also naturally happens because of social media and all the crazy stuff that's out there, that we tend to lean more towards half empty versus half full. Um, and yeah, and then, um, yeah, so the support of my wife is a big piece of it. And then I also journal. So I started that a couple of weeks ago. And one of my first journals was about a particular business that is, I don't want to say like just completely struggling, but it's definitely on the lower end of profitability. And I that journal like really helped me get some of my thoughts out on paper that maybe were just sitting in the back of my brain that I didn't even almost know were there till I just started writing, and it ended up being 2 pages long. And so between all those things and just letting it out and having my wife there as a sounding board and all those things just really helped me get through that time. Just mentally and personally. The business piece you just churn through, and we do our weekly meetings, our biweekly meetings, our quarterly planning. We do all those things, and things are all just naturally churning. But um, all that doesn't matter if the personal piece is a disaster and a mess. If that piece isn't clean and you're not, you know, going to the meetings and doing those things in a positive manner, it doesn't matter what you're doing. So that piece is really important to make sure you take care of.
So I love that, you are somebody that is very intentional. And I guess with as many things as you have your hands in, you have to be super intentional, but you're intentional on setting clear goals and clear expectations for yourself, for your business, for your employees, for your team members, setting those goals that turn into plans. Is that something that you picked up along the way, or is that just kind of how you've always been?
Definitely picked up along the way. I the my mentor Rod makes it a good point of, people say like, how do I do everything that I do? And it's no different than trying to run a marathon or trying to run a 5K or a 10K. If you tried to do that day one, you can't get, there's no way I'm just gonna, leave what I'm doing and go run a 5K immediately. So you train yourself to be able to get there. You train yourself to be able to lift 300 pounds on a bench press. And you can't do that from day one. And that's how I look at how I got from point A to point B. Is that, over time, I started developing and learning, well, golly, I got to take on this, so how do I get more organized? And then I took on something else and it's like, okay, how do I get more organized? And then, other things, became on like the who, not how theory on who can help me instead of, how do I just manage more things? And it's all just slowly morphed over time. Um, and that's why I tell people personally, people are always like, "What would you do different?" And I'm one that I wouldn't do any of the process different because how I got from point A to, point M or whatever I am at now, the only way I got there is by learning and failing and then relearning and then failing again and then relearning and just keep continuing moving forward till I, developed, this kind of process that I have today of, managing all these different businesses.
So failure is something that's going to happen, right? Sometimes it's on a large scale, sometimes it's on a small scale. We're all going to make mistakes. Uh, Things aren't going to go exactly as we had initially planned, no matter how wonderful our plan is. You said something that I want to kind of underline is you failed and you learned something.
Yep.
The importance of recognizing, because I think the fear of failure is another fear that keeps us from doing things, or the fear that it's the wrong thing to do. Talk about your process of committing to a decision, but not being fully tied to the outcome.
Yeah, I'm definitely the guy that I see something happening and I realize what we're doing today isn't working, so let's do something different. And, fear and everything else and failure can make somebody or a lot of people think about the outcome before it even gets there. And I look at it as, well, I can guess the outcome, or I can allow the outcome to happen and see and massage it along the way and work through additional problems that come up and eventually end at what hopefully is a good solution. And if it's not, and that wasn't the right thing, well, a month, reevaluation is okay. And I guess the other thing I would maybe say is, no decision that we really make is so permanent that you can't go back, minus like a tattoo or something crazy, but in general, from a business standpoint, if you want to do something different in marketing or you want to make a manager change, even that's a fairly significant change. Like nothing is so permanent that you can't go back and say, "Hey, look, like I messed up. This isn't the right move. Let's reevaluate and try something else." And we can either try those things and churn through all those things a year and until we find the solution, or we can sit back and and just think about what the solution could be, think about all the outcomes, but never actually know if it's the right outcome or not.
And so many times people are afraid to say, "Oh, that was wrong. This isn't working out the way we thought it was going to. Let's try something else." And building the culture that that's okay. It's okay to admit that, and it's okay that it didn't work out the way we thought it was. What can we learn from it? And do we need to tweak it? Do we need to change it? Or do we just need to not do that anymore and do something totally different? The ability to do that is what can help move things forward. But that fear of I'm not sure, I think is sometimes worse for any business, right?
Yeah, and look, no decision that I think any good business person makes, we don't know the outcomes. We don't know what it's going to be. We have a intelligent guess based upon our experience in our business and in our doors and what we've done before. But, to sit back and think of any marketing plan, business plan, or anything that's gone to plan, I don't have a single one, that's actually gone their route. Some have done better, some have done worse. Um, none have been none have been flaming messes, by any means, so like things don't turn out great and, over, have less income, have more expense, there's all those things that can go bad. Um, but if you don't even try and you don't do it, then you never get anywhere. So, finding, I guess I look at it as long as we're moving forward in some direction, everything's moving forward. Even if it ends up swerving left, swerving right, even if it turns backwards a little bit, at least you're moving. I think sitting still in business could be the worst possible thing to do. And that's when somebody's super fearful, scared, nervous, whatever it is. And I just look at it as, let's see how it turns out. And in 6 weeks, if it doesn't work, we'll just try again. We'll come up with something new. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And other business people should not be afraid of those things because failure makes us grow. And if we never fail, we really never learn. It's no different than walking. When we started walking, you fell 1,000 times and eventually you learn not to fall. and it's just no it's really no different, and it's really as simple as that.
That's great. That's great. Chris, what would you tell yourself? You've been doing this for a few years now. What would you tell yourself, your younger self, when you were first starting this out? What would you say to that Chris Moyer from however many years ago? What would that piece of advice be to that kid?
Ooh, my wife and I were just talking about this the other day because it's coming up on my 20-year high school anniversary in a couple of months, and we were talking about. I was talking about myself. If I would have seen myself 20 years in the future, this is not where I thought I would be. I think some people thought I'd be in a comedy club or working at McDonald's or on the fryer or something like that. 20 years from then, I was kind of the jokester kid, a little bit of the troublemaker in high school. Um, I'd say the one thing I would tell myself is to learn and educate myself, not from not speaking from a college standpoint, but from a practical standpoint. Like I wasn't much of a reader as a kid. And I definitely did not take the route of like listening to others at first when I was young and taking advice really well. So if I had to go back, that would be definitely one because I'm sure between the ages of 13 and 23, I missed out on probably a lot of really good learning opportunities that I told myself that I just weren't worth my time.
That's great. That's great. All right, Chris, we're coming to the end of our time here. And obviously, the Growth Pro Edge, we are about growth, the growth of people's business, of people's teams, and of ourselves. So I've got to ask you the question, what do you do to grow yourself?
Yeah, I still listen to podcasts. I still read. I still am, trying new things. Like this journaling thing is new. I've never journaled a day in my life up until January 2026. So, I take not only the business aspect, but the personal aspect kind of the same way of, well, let's try something new. My mentor, Rod, has told, our group to, that's really powerful to do some of that stuff. So I'm still educating myself today on how to manage these businesses better and, try to stay even more organized. And I've really taken this beginning of this year to plan out my week on my calendar really well and have this new journal thing sitting next to me. So just continuing to grow and continuing taking that same business aspect and bringing it into my personal life as well to make sure that I can keep up with the businesses and support them and then also support my family and my life and everything else going on and make sure that I have time for all that too.
Fantastic. Well, Chris, I cannot tell you how much I appreciate you being here with us on the Growth Pro Edge and a lot of great takeaways that you provided to our listeners. So thank you so much for that. And thanks for your time. How can people get a hold of you, Chris?
Yeah, social media is a fantastic way, either LinkedIn or Facebook. You can just find me. Also have a website for my real estate investing stuff, which is Ways to Wealth Equity. So between Let's Roll Bowling, Ways to Wealth Equity, Facebook, LinkedIn, plenty of ways to reach out and find me.
All right, perfect. Well, Chris, thank you again for your time. Appreciate it. And I know we'll be talking to you soon because you've got so much great things to offer to our listeners. So appreciate your time today, Chris.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Gosh, thank you so much, Chris, for your time. I appreciate it. My goodness. He doesn't really have a lot of it. So the fact that he was able to spend a few minutes with us sharing his insights sure means the world to me. And I hope that today's conversation gave you some practical tools and a mindset shift to sharpen your edge and accelerate your growth. And if you enjoyed this show, please rate us and review us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It'll help us reach more leaders like you. And visit thegrowthprogroup.com for show notes, the full transcript, and video versions of this episode. And if you're ready to grow your team, your business, or yourself, schedule a free growth call with one of our coaches. Also like to thank our sponsors once again: Embed, Party Center Software, A&A Global, Betson, Simnox, Schaefer, and Roller. And until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep striving for the extraordinary.